It feels like the Palestinians there have never truly accepted the idea that any Israeli state will ever exist. And as long as that idea is not only pervasive, but in a way kind of encouraged by the international community, I feel like you're giving them enough to just keep the conflict alive. Why try to build, another state? Why try to build a city that's prosperous? Or why try to do anything when the whole goal needs to be resistance, 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 and fighting against Israel?
How many Israelis do you think accept an existence of a Palestinian state, accept the fact that Palestinians are human beings? How many Israelis are like this? You really think it's the majority?
I mean, situations on the ground can change fast. I don't know what the current polling is. I don't think there's high polling for two states for either side. But historically, if you look at negotiations between Arafat, between Mahmoud Abbas, it doesn't seem like the Palestinians have ever put anything on the table saying this is what we would accept for a two-state solution. This is the type of deal that we would accept. It's always this like reject, accept 2 years later, and then continue the conflict. Like I don't know what the actual if I were to ask, do you know what what is it that Palestinians would want that would satisfy them for some type of final arrangement?
And what would the Israelis want?
It sounds like for Israelis, it feels like the general agreement is some kind of security arrangement that leaves them feeling comfortable in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. So whether this is, I think in Tabo's summit, it was like 3 military outposts or whatever, and maybe control of the airspace to be handed off over time. It looks like some form of, I think in the West Bank, they want to do land swaps in order to keep the big settlement blocks near the Green Line. I think that settlements that are deep in should just be destroyed, in my opinion. I don't know if they would go with that or not. And then some sort of limitation on the right of return, which is a big one. And then some sort of access or visitation to the Western Wall without that being heavily restricted. It feels like it's like something in that ballpark. I feel like the Israeli government, I feel like, would accept.
So why didn't he do anything about it?
They tried in Camp David. They tried with Olmer.
But now they only built more settlements. That's the only thing that they really done. They built more and more settlements in order to sabotage any chance for a full partition. What Israel said is totally irrelevant. Israel under Labour, under Likud, did anything possible to prevent any chance of partition.
I agree. The explanation of the settlements, I think it was a disaster in the West Bank. I don't think nobody intelligent should...
Wait to be blamed on this.
Who can be blamed for this? I mean, people that want to push settlements into the West Bank, right? I think...
We all carry this responsibility. All of us Israelis are settlers because we enabled this.
Sure, but I mean, the Israeli argument is that violence never completely stopped from the Palestinians, that Arafat was always, hungry to push another deal off and see violence erupt, in the Second Intifada from 2000 to 2004 or 5, that, there's always been this kind of like the Fedayeen mindset of like the attacks and the pressure and everything else. So, I mean, I feel like depending on what you want to pick and choose from, both sides can say, look, they messed it up. Israel kept expanding the West Bank. Palestinians kept doing terror attacks. And every time one side would kind of like control their side a little bit more, the other side would push more. And it's like this back and forth. And if it doesn't get people looking for excuses, there's always a reason to blame somebody and then not do anything, which I feel is just really toxic.
You mentioned security. What's about the security of the Palestinian people? Who is about to guard, to protect the 3 million people of Gaza? Who is about to protect them? Who is about to protect the 3 million people of the West Bank? What about their security? They are in 100 times more danger than we Israelis. What about their security? They don't have the right for self-defense, won't they?
I mean, the issue is bad right now. I agree it's not ideal, but if you were to swap it, who do you think lives in more security? Do you think Palestinians in the West Bank living under Israeli, subjugation, or if it was Jewish people living in the West Bank living under Palestinian subjugation? If Palestinians owned Israel and the Jews were in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, do you think the situation would look the same or worse?
But we are speaking about a certain situation in which 40,000 people are slaughtered in Gaza, and the whole world speaks about the security for Israel. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah. I think that the fear is that, at least historically, it made more sense that Israel was a state that was looking at enemies on all sides and is facing potential annihilation at any point in time, where its people can't go anywhere else because they felt like they've been victims of the world. How true is that narrative today? Probably not as true as it was in the 30s and 40s. Probably not as true as it was in the Six-Day War in Yom Kippur. But I mean, yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Which is why I think, like I said, if we were to look at, there are more Arabs living in Israel today, like 10 times more or 100 times more than Jews living in every other Arab country combined. I think the Jewish people, I think, are understandably fearful of being a minority in a country that they're in, especially if it's run by Arab citizens. I think that's a fair fear to have. Do you think that's like a fair worry to have?
They are more than welcome to pull out from the Palestinian areas, and then they will be very safe. There will be a majority.
For sure. I was thinking in terms of like because it feels like any peace agreement that the Palestinians want to make demand like an unlimited right of return to the land of Israel. That's what it feels like. I don't think there's ever been a Palestinian delegation or a negotiator that has said that they're willing to give up some amount of right of return. So it feels like there's always like 5 to 7 million Palestinians having the right to move back into Israel proper, if any like a peace agreement is actually made.